Welcome to the world of Rex. I'm Marvel Rex, and we have a very special bonus episode where we are going to be discussing Jupiter entering Cancer with Bad Pastor, aka Lindsey Turner. And I'm so
Yay.
excited to have Lindsey on the podcast. Hello, Lindsey.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here, Marvel. It's great to see you again.
Yes, we met at LA Astrofest, and I'll do a quick intro of Lindsey
Yes.
Turner before we, dive into all the juicy stuff. You are an astrologer and minister who works with clients to navigate change, growth, self understanding through Hellenistic astrology, which I love, spiritual care, and the nonviolent communication method. So important. Lindsey also teaches astrology and collaborates on conversations exploring how these ancient practices speak to our modern lives, especially around themes of justice, queerness, and community. Welcome, Lindsey. So happy to have you.
Thank you.
All
I'm
right.
just glad to be here
I
during
know.
this crazy Gemini season.
Yes, I think we should just tell the listeners that before we even hopped on, we were like, wow, we're recording on June 3rd for anyone who's curious at 1 p.m. Pacific time for anyone who's curious. Um, and it's just knee deep in Gemini season, and we're
Yeah.
hanging on.
Yeah, we're hanging on. We managed to connect, which is amazing.
Yes, with this beautiful, frenetic Mercury, Gemini and Mercury and Gemini, Jupiter and Gemini, Sun and Gemini. Wow, the attention
Yes.
span is short and all over the place. But we're gonna focus because we're actually gonna be grounded by the fact that we're talking about Jupiter in Cancer, which is not
Yeah.
the same thing as the energy of
It's It's not. We're really looking forward to it. I've been joking that I think people with Cancer placements are really looking forward to Jupiter in Cancer, and people with Gemini placements are really looking forward to Jupiter in Cancer.
yes,
It's
yes.
been kind of the most in Gemini.
Do we want to talk a little bit, just briefly, about Jupiter in his detriment in Gemini, and then kind of like segue into how we're going from detriment to exaltation and what that looks
Yeah.
like? Do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah,
About the last year?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I I think just this last year, at least sociopolitically for me, has been really marked by this like what is going on. It's like everything's happening at once. It's hard to discern what's true, what's not, what's like AI generated, what's not. Everything is polarized, everything is polarizing. Like what's going on? So we have this like big picture planet in this sign that is really more concerned with getting locked up in details.
Yeah. I keep imagining the symbol of an asterisk where it's like and the arrows are moving in all the directions, right? And that to me, in terms of meaning making with Jupiter, you have now meaning making that's trying to move in every direction all at once, everything everywhere all at once. And then what does meaning mean, right? Like if you can't commit to a single direction, what does it even mean? What is like life? And I think that that's been the last year tonally in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of people have been having existential crises. And, I think that hand in hand with all of these outer planetary ingresses into new signs is, I don't know about you, but for me, I'm like, there are things that I was so sure about for my entire life that at this moment, I have no fucking clue. I'm
Yep.
like, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that.
Yep. I said this on the pod. It's so beautiful that we're recording now because I said this on the podcast, I think last week, or it's this week's episode. I think it was actually this week's episode that just dropped on June 2nd. I said exactly what you just said, which was I had certain long-standing, especially from higher education, I'd had long-standing beliefs from higher education back like a decade ago that was like, this is my philosophy, this is my life purpose, like this is in during Jupiter and Gemini, I had to look at it parallaxically from so many different angles that it broke down. And I was like, whoa, like the
Yeah.
Sagittarian, Jupiter in its domicile in the opposite sign of Sagittarius is this is my truth, capital T. We're moving forward. I'm not questioning this. And in the opposite
Mm-hmm.
sign, it's like, oh crap.
Mm-hmm.
We're questioning
Yeah.
deeply held beliefs all of a sudden.
Yeah. Didn't think about that little nit.
Ah, like the details, the devil's in the details. You're like, that detail somehow had the ability to like shoot through the Death Star and blow up the whole structure to me.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow.
Yeah. And I think also, like, when if we're talking about truth, like the big T truth, there's this sort of assumption that truth is singular.
Yeah.
And I think now people have been wrestling with, like, oh, multiple things can be true at the same time. What do we do with that? And I know, like, even in like a therapeutic process, in my own therapeutic process, one of the biggest first steps was being like someone can love you and they may not be right for you, right? Like both can be true at the same time. And so how do you build, I think Jupiter is such a capacity building planet, and so how do
Mhm.
you like build capacity to hold multiple truths, I think might be a really great question for Jupiter and Gemini, and sort of what's been coming out the last year.
It's so beautiful. What you said was so beautiful because we're also wrapping up this like square to Saturn and Pisces. Well, I guess Saturn's out of Pisces, but like we're wrapping up that storyline because they were in square from Gemini to Pisces for so long. And I
Hmm.
always think of that square to Pisces as like what is no longer allowing me to feel in flow state and like connected. Jupiter and
Hmm.
Gemini comes in and says, you have to hold all of the complexity of this so that you can kind of surrender to it. Another thing that really mirrors what you just said is a big one that came up for me in the last couple months, a phrase, which is very Gemini, like we have a phrase, words, is you can love someone unconditionally and still ask them to change their behavior. Like that's been a big one for me, which is so mirror to what you're expressing. And I'm kind of teasing us into Jupiter in Cancer here, but I actually feel like people are going to have the potential on a large scale to do some really deep emotional healing now. That emotional being the key word, emotional healing because of the awareness of, oh, I have to hold multiple truths at once. I was just seeing
Yes.
black and white before.
Yes, yes, because the signs are always completing the ones before them. And so that is such a natural shift of I have oriented to the information maybe differently than I ever have, and here's some new stuff, and some of it may feel deeply contradictory. And so now it's time to integrate that in the emotional body. Woo!
And oh gosh, I love what you just said because what I was feeling last night, just speaking of timing, like feeling last night with the moon moving into Virgo, feeling the body, and I was realizing there's such a difference between cognitive awareness and emotional awareness. You know this. This is like work you do with clients,
Mm.
right? It's like how to know something in the body and in the heart is so different than conceptually talking about it with, let's say, a partner, where a partner is bringing you information. You're like, I heard you, but then to feel, oh wait, the emotional reality of that, that's usually where behavior starts to shift, is when it actually
Mm.
lands in the body and in the heart and in the like feelings of it all.
Yeah, yeah. I totally agree. I totally agree. It's an exciting movement. I don't know. And it also poignant, I think, to process things from the cognition into the body.
Yeah, I had a really beautiful experience of going to outpatient therapy for complex post-traumatic stress disorder, or
Mm.
CPTSD. I went to outpatient years ago, actually, when Saturn was on my son, and oh, like it was a moment where I was like, wow, I'm really healing. And and I was structured. And one thing I learned was they were talking like all of this information's coming in, and I was working with a somatic therapist in outpatient, so body therapist, and he was like, so much information's coming in all the time, but often when you're traumatized, like things can get stuck right in the throat. So they're not making it, like our traumas in our body, it's not making its way up into our brain so that we can look at it. And vice versa. People are giving us information, but it's not landing in the body because there's trauma. There's like, we're holding the throat. So the inability to speak up for yourself, the inability to say no, the inability to know what you want. Like that's where that throat chakra really, right? That's the sort of conduit between the body and the mind, and we really worked on kind of opening that up. And it is through somatic practices ultimately that you can really start to
Mhm.
kind of loosen up the connection between, I don't know if I believe in like Cartesian dualism and mind body, but like you can loosen up this place where there can be a lot of stagnation. And I will
Yeah.
say, to just segue us into Jupiter and Cancer, there's so much somatic. To me, it's so somatic where Jupiter's about to jump in. So
Completely. Well, this is the sign that's ruled by the moon. And in the Hellenistic tradition, right, like we call the sun fortune, or the sun spirit and the moon fortune, and that refers to like what is happening to the body, like fortune, like what is actually happening to your body, to the material things in your life. And the moon also in astrology just like is the body. It just represents the body. And I think that unfortunately, in sort of, I think this is shifting in contemporary psychology, but there's this idea that the emotions are kind of this separate thing, but like the emotions are the body, like they arise in the body, like they are sensations in the body. And so, yes, Cancer is this incredibly somatic sign just by nature of its ruler.
Yes. Yes, I love that you brought that in. 'Cause I when I work with clients, sometimes they're like, "Wait, I thought my first house was my body. What are you talking about my moon? Why are you saying that there's a health aspect if we're talking about my moon?" And I'm like, "The moon and the first house," I'm like, "The moon is the body." Like the moon often will show health aspects, often will show because you're absolutely right. Like when we have, especially if we have unprocessed trauma, it can manifest in literal health issues. The body keeps score. The moon's in Virgo right now. Like we should just let's name it. It's like the body keeps score. The body remembers what happens to us on an emotional level. And I know a lot of clients who heal an emotional wound and they start to experience less symptoms that they were experiencing physically, right? Their symptoms
Oh,
go down all
completely.
the time. Yeah.
Oh, completely. I've been in relational situations that when they ended, I would like some mystery illness I was having completely went away. So, 100% agree. Yeah, yeah. And like thinking about the moon too, in the tradition, the idea is that the moon like goes around and like collects all the effluences of all the planets and then kind of filters them into the native, like in your nativity, but then also the transiting moon is kind of checking in and just being like, what's going on? It's like duck, duck, goose. Like, what's going on with Neptune? What's going on with Venus? What's going on with Mercury? And, you know, and moving us through emotions to get needs met. And is saying, like, hey, like moon's transiting Venus in Aries, like, you actually really need to take a step for your own autonomy, right? And like I'm triggering that. And so the moon, yeah, is this like deeply connective tissue in astrology
Mhm.
of like, yeah, needs and action.
Yes. And it goes back to my earlier point that so beautifully weaves into my earlier point around often we have to feel, first off, we have to feel it to heal it. That's easy. But then it's like often behaviorally, when you study behavioral psychology, it's like you have to have an emotion behind something to really start to act. Like we can like be like, "Oh yeah, A plus B equals C. Okay, I guess I have to do that." But we won't really stick with habits. Like we can't create habits unless there's an emotional, compelling drive. And that's I think the
Yes.
moon is bringing in behave. She's like, "Here, boom, boom, boom." Like you have to feel it so that you're gonna do the. I love that example of Venus and Aries. Like, okay, now I get to take a stand, maybe relationally or with my finances or something. But there's a feeling that the moon's bringing, and I think when you study astrology enough, you can see big aspects happening, like Jupiter entering Cancer. But we may not emotionally start to understand Jupiter and Cancer until the moon starts to cross over, right? Or the
Mhm.
moon is starts to. Although I think this is all happening during that Sagittarius full moon, so we have to talk about that because I think that that Sag full moon is going to like really blow that up.
I
Um,
love that chart so much. Can I just say I'm like obsessed with that chart? And the new moon chart this month is amazing too.
gorgeous. They're both gorgeous. The
They're
lunations. I want to
gorgeous.
make a tiny note for listeners that this year, starting on June 9th, which is the day that Jupiter moves into Cancer, June 9th. I don't have the time, so I don't know if you have that. But anyway, June
Not off
9th.
the top of my head.
Not off the top of my head, but from June 9th until basically a year later, June of 2020,
30th.
June 30th of 2026,
Hmm.
um, we really want to be tracking the moon. Like I think everyone should be sort of. I always say this to clients. I'm always like, please follow the moon. Speaking with my
If
Cancer.
that's the only thing you did, you would be such a good astrologer. I tell
Yes.
people that all the time. You don't need to know anything. If you just like follow what sign the moon is in and maybe like what planets it's conjoining.
And who the moon's talking to. Exactly to your point. Like duck, duck, goose. Like the moon is integrating all this information as it moves around 30 days. Like it has a full and new moon every month. It's like boom, all
Yeah.
of that new information. So yes, tracking the moon I think would be extremely powerful. I definitely work with clients around building somatic practices based on where the moon sign's at. So like if the moon's in Pisces
Yes.
interacting with your feet, etc. That would be a powerful thing. So if anyone's interested, you know how to find me. But in general, lunar practices are so powerful this year.
Hmm. I totally, totally agree. Yeah. And all the time, but especially now.
And
um,
do you want to start by just sharing? I think we should just come out about our Cancer placements and then jump into like what we're excited about, what we think about Jupiter and Cancer, obviously Saturn, Neptune coming in, all these things. Yeah.
yes. Yes. So I have Sun in Cancer, and the midheaven in Cancer. So I have a Cancer 10th house. I use the whole sign system. So yes, 10th house. That's it. being and it's all being ruled by a moon in Leo. So,
It's so funny because I don't know if you shared your rising with me, but we hopped on Zoom, I was like, it's very interesting because sometimes on Zoom I will look at my notes and not look at the person, but of course you're a Libra rising. I was like, I want to look at them. Like I love my Libra rising. I have a Libra moon. So I love my.
our
Oh,
our synastry is awesome. That's so cool.
I have a Libra moon at
Oh,
21, and so I just love my Libras. I love them.
oh, my
Um,
ascendant's 24.
yeah. So
We're
yeah, very close,
so
very close.
cute.
Yeah. So I love it. Cancer Libra energy here. I'll just come out and say that I have the South Node in Cancer and Cancer rising
Yeah.
at the Capricorn degree 22. So woo, square my moon.
Wow.
At my descendant, square my moon. And
Wow.
interestingly, just to bring this conversation full circle, my midheaven is Aries, and so Saturn and Neptune, and very early Aries. So Saturn and Neptune, I'm sort of acting. I will be acting as Saturn and Neptune, I think, in a lot of ways, visibly, right? 10th house.
Wow.
So
Whew.
cardinal. Here we are. Two cardinal sign. Two like many cardinals. We've got lots of cardinal placements talking about this big cardinal Jupiter moment.
This is appropriate. This is divinely ordained.
So, so Lindsay, I'd love to hear from you in terms of like what are your initial thoughts about Jupiter and Cancer? Uh, yeah, any
Yeah.
big picture moments for us here as we start.
Yeah. I I often think about cycles, like my own cycles, to kind of learn about what planets are doing. And the last time that Jupiter was in Cancer was June 25th, 2013 through July 16th, 2014. And that was that was a time in my life where I was doing a lot of healing around my primary nurturer growing up,
Mhm.
and also came across this story. I was in seminary at the time. I came across this story that many years later ended up uniting my like faith and my ministry with astrology.
Mm.
So it's a very 10th house story for me, but um, I think like this concept of nurture, like who nurtured you? Who do you nurture? Stories that nurture you. I mean, anything that kind of comes into your life. And then also stability. There was something about that time period that was incredibly stabilizing and like putting down roots that I didn't even know, right, would come to grow into like a huge, beautiful tree another cycle later. Like, if I could go back and tell that person 12 years ago what 2025 was going to look like, I think they would have been like, what? Like, that's awesome. I can't believe that this little thing, these little awakenings actually turned into something that had a full life and a full lifespan. And that feels so Jupiter and Cancer to me.
Oh, that just like sprouted a bunch of things for me to think about. And I want to just say for listeners, like Jupiter basically functions on a 12-year cycle. Jupiter moves is in each sign for about a year, right? So then takes about 12 years to move from, let's say Cancer back to Cancer. So that's why you're referencing June 25th of 2013 all the way till July 16th of 2014. For listeners, I would really recommend you thinking deeply. Like, this is a great journal moment to be like, what was going on in my life between the 25th of June of 2013 and July 16th of 2014? Like, that's such a good jumping off point. Um,
Mhm.
so I love your 10th house thing. I also would just want to reference that like Pluto was in your fourth, right? So
Yeah.
like, but like, so caretaker, right? You mentioned a caretaker, you mentioned a family member, like that's your fourth house. Like Pluto being there is like, we got to excavate some stuff, right? Bring it up. So like, beautiful.
He
We have,
did.
and so then I'll give you my flip because we're on this cardinal axis here, Cancer rising. I began my transition during this time. So I took, of course, and Pluto's in my seventh. And here's the trip. I was in a relationship with a 22-degree Libra rising who's a dear, deep, like, so she was actually at LA Astrofest. She's like soul family to me. She has Cancer in the 10th, midheaven. Um, I met her at the beginning of 2013. We really started to connect as Jupiter entered Cancer. She was that Pluto in my seventh house. In a way, she was my Pluto, not in a bad way. She mirrored to me, like any good Libra does. She mirrored to me my masculinity that I was not integrating. I was like very afraid to integrate my masculinity. And she was like, "You're a beautiful man." She didn't tell me that I was trans. She's just like, "I see the man in you and it's so beautiful." And
Wow.
I always tell her, she's always like, "Oh, don't give me credit." But I'm like, our relationship, first, seventh house, Jupiter and Pluto here, really healed a part of me that was hiding. And so Jupiter came into my first and was like, "You're coming out, buddy. Like,
Oh
it's
my
time."
gosh.
So I transitioned during that period of time. And of course, first house, like a lot of things changed. And I had new meaning making in my first, right? In my identity. Yeah.
Oh, completely. And there was literally like someone planted a seed.
Yes.
And that seems so universal when I talk to people about 12 years ago. Like this little seed. And look at you now, Marva. I'm like gonna start crying. Like trans joy, right? Like if 12 years ago you could see you now, like
And it's
what would he have said?
and it's wild because again, it needed to happen through relationship. That makes sense. Also, Libra moon, like her ascendant is right on my moon. So like boom, there it is. My body starts to change because this Libra comes in and sees me so directly. Right. Her ascendant's on my moon. So like boom, my body starts to change. I will also say that my Pisces, I have a Pisces sun, so my Pisces of it all was like was as a young person, not knowing anything about trans people, being raised in Salt Lake City, Utah, in like a very conservative religious environment. I never thought that I could be like, I just didn't see my future, but I kept having these weird Pisces future reflections where I had like weird dreams where I saw myself as like a man, which was again impossible to me. I was like, that's never going to happen. But I saw myself as a man walking on the Seine River in Paris, so specific, with two women, a blonde and a brunette. And ironically, this year, last year, 2024, I was in Paris with my partner who's a blonde and my friend who's a brunette, beautiful women, and we're sitting on the whole thing happened. I don't know how that's tied to my own cycles because I'm like, it was Jupiter and Gemini, but just saying like it happened. And that is like the healing power, I think, of Cancer in a way, is like you can deeply heal and your life can transform immensely. I
Yes.
will say that I don't know how your experience was healing your relationship to your parental figure or guardian, but there was a lot of pain that year because I had to face so much repressed emotion. So I just
Oh
want to put
yeah.
that out there. But Pluto was also in Capricorn. So there's that piece is not present this cycle in 2020.
Yeah. That opposition, I think, really did create that dynamic. And no, it was very painful. And there was a severance that had to happen. So that it was this sort of like cutting something off at the roots. I mean, I own an orchard, so I think a lot about we get these like invasive species trees in the orchard, and what they do is their root systems take over. So they're like these little puny things, but the root systems take over and like zap all the nutrients. And so part of maintaining the orchard is like cutting out the stuff that is zapping the soil and like taking over with the root system. And so that felt like part of it for me too, was like I actually have to excavate
Mhm.
in order to create room for these new plants to grow in whatever kind of metaphorical sense.
That's so beautiful. I just have to name because Pluto is this super small planet, but like has such a invisible aura. Like when you said small plants, really big underground root system, I was like, that's Pluto. Pluto,
Yes.
right? Pluto in an Earth
Yes.
sign. Like there we go. Yeah.
Totally. And at the bottom of my chart, and I often see charts being represented by like tree of life, right? Like the roots come down and then the branches come up. So, yeah, absolutely. And I also wanted to note that part of my Jupiter and Cancer story last time around was a prophetic dream.
Mm.
And so I feel like that could also be a big signature of this transit, is like I had a prophetic dream that completely changed my life. And so yeah, I could totally see that being a thing.
Especially with the square from Neptune, actually. I'm like, and Saturn, but definitely Neptune squaring this ingress, this movement of Jupiter into Cancer.
Yes.
I think
Yeah, and we're getting that right away, like right off the bat.
I love that too. I just want to name a few things like the moon being, I always associate the moon when I think about the tarot, I associate the moon with the moon card, but also with the high priestess. And that's all
Mm.
very liminal occult spaces where we can have incredible healing moments where you're like, wow, my life is shifting because I had a prophetic dream, or my life is shifting because I did some sort of occult practice and I can see the path forward to healing.
Yeah. Yeah. I just even thinking of that like etymology of occult, of like darkness, right? And Cancer being ruled by the moon, like being this kind of nocturnal place, and the generativity. I mean, it's very, talk about like erotic. And I think Cancer is like such an erotic sign, and it gets super underplayed because Venus like takes the lead on that. Um, but this, like, what happens in the dark is hot and generative, and like, whoa, like things that are happening undercover and then later kind of come out. I don't know.
Yes, I really hear that. I do feel such a deep resonance between Taurus and Cancer, and I feel like Taurus often gets the like lusty signature because of Venus.
Hmm.
And yet like the womb Cancer, the just the fertility of Cancer, a lot of Cancers I know are very kind of horny people. Like I just like gonna name it, but like but it's also but
No lies detected.
as a way to like process emotions too though, if we think about the
Yeah.
somatic practice of sexuality, whether it's solo or with other people, you're moving energy from like the sacral, the root, all these really powerful parts of our body, and I do think that there's just such an emotional catharsis that can happen when you're processing that way.
Yes. Well, and two things, right? Taurus is the sign of the moon's exaltation. So can't really separate those two.
Yep.
And yeah, thinking about like back to this movement from Gemini to Cancer, I really think of Gemini as like nervous system, right? Like all these signals being like blah, 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 like communicated all the time. And then we get to the regulation part, whether it's like self-regulation or co-regulation, right? Like Cancer's such a co-regulating sign. It's like, let's just hold each other, or let's just fuck, or like, like why don't we just like sync up our rhythms so that we can kind of dial it back a little bit.
I love that you just mentioned the word regulation, self-regulation and co-regulation, because I actually feel that is such an important piece of this transit for a lot of people. And I do think we'll get to the Saturn Neptune square, but I think that there will be an initiation happening this summer around kind of an audit from the planets, like especially
Hmm.
Saturn and Neptune being like, do you know how to self-regulate? Do you know how to co-regulate? Can we refine that? Because I think that that piece, if we can really master that over the next year, there's an opportunity to master that over the next year in a way that allows for so much abundance. The
Yeah.
exaltation piece, like so much abundance in our lives. Um,
Yeah.
right? In terms of how we're nourishing ourselves on a daily basis. The one little point I'll put in there is that I do sometimes feel like Cancer energy is very much like cats in a home, domestic cats, because cats are so sensitive to the vibrations and the rhythms of what's happening in their environment. Cats notice when something moves in an environment. They notice when you've placed a furniture in a different spot. They're like, "Ooh, oh," they have to kind of get back in sync with the environment after it's changed. And I think Cancer in general, archetypally, is so tied into just shifts in the environment, immediate environment,
Mhm. Yeah, big sensitivity.
which we live with. Yes, as a Cancer sun.
Love to hate it, hate to love it. Like it's
I do think pop culturally, Cancers sometimes get not as bad of a rap as Geminis and Scorpios. Like they're in their own camp, and bless them. I love y'all, and I think pop cultural astrology can be really reductive. But Cancers also sometimes get a bad rap for being overly sensitive, right? And
yeah.
for mirroring a person's emotions back to them when they're not ready to see it, and that's not necessarily happening consciously, right?
Yeah. Well, I can see the sort of the shadow side of like co-regulation to like codependence.
Oh, for sure.
Of like instead of like we're two individuals and we can like maintain our sense of autonomy and regulate together, like that's the like healthy expression of Cancer. I think is the like we're two individuals and if we just merge.
Then we'll be regulated all the time. Oh, but that's not healthy.
Yeah.
Oops. Yeah.
Ugh, but then we aren't individuals anymore, so like uh-oh, what do we do?
Yes. This is
Yeah. Wow. Well, and especially, I mean, I don't know, do you want to talk about the Saturn square? Because it seems like a good segue of this like Saturn is restructuring this area of that I think of as being like about autonomy and freedom and individualism and individuality and Aries. And, dignity aside, right? Like when Saturn comes into a sign, it renovates. It's like we're gonna raise whatever exists in here and build up something new. And it might even be a little unrecognizable to you by the time I'm done. And so we're getting this makeover in Aries that is in, an overcoming or like superior square to Jupiter in Cancer, which it concerns me a little bit. Like this dynamic, I think that there are opportunities, but I'm also a little like, maybe on a socio-political level, I'm a little like, oh yikes, like this is kind of giving yikes energy.
no, yeah, yeah. I didn't mean to interrupt. But the
No, I'm done.
collective piece is huge. I will just frame for people the timeline so that there maybe is a little bit of help here in terms of planning because I'm like astrology, timing, everything.
Please.
June 9th, right? Jupiter moves in, immediately gets squared by Neptune and Saturn. And so I've been talking to my clients about the fact that this initial ingress, while we are very excited about Jupiter being in Cancer because it's a very happy placement by itself, the dominating square from Saturn and Neptune can feel like a, a trouble at the beginning, which is the third hexagram of the I Ching. Trouble at the beginning.
Oh,
Yes, I've been
interesting.
thinking about the third hexagram a lot because I'm like, oh, like it's kind of associated with the Fool, like somebody, and which is very Aries. Like I stepped out into this new realm. Saturn's like, you need to have, it's my 10th house. So I'm like, woof, career, but it's like you need to reinvent yourself to some degree, depending on where the Aries part of your chart is. I do think of Aries as the contractor coming into a building and being like, this isn't up to code. We have to like this is done. Like we're done. We're crashing this. And particularly it being the first sign of the zodiac, Aries, all that Pisces stuff the last 3 years was like, wrap it up, wrap it up, wrap it up. That's from the past. Let it go. Let it go. Like you need to feel
Yes.
more right, just like old stuff being rehashed and figured out. June 9th, I would say through the summer is this interesting test ride where we're getting a glimpse to like new potentials and new possibilities that are, I think, going to be very exciting for a lot of people. I think the rude wake up call that's very possible here for a lot of folks is, oh, I'm not emotionally mature enough for these changes. But that's not a judgment that I'm sharing for folks. It's an awareness of Saturn reality check. Whoa, I have to grow up emotionally. Is the positive. It's like I
Uh,
have to grow up in this way, and this way, and it's painful to acknowledge that. I would say
uh,
humility in June, July, August will go a long way
oh
from an
God.
emotional perspective. Humility from an emotional place is like, oh yeah, okay. So if I want to have this bountiful thing, I got to get my shit together, Aries. Not oh,
Yeah.
Lindsey has to get their shit together. no, like that's the Aries piece is like radical ownership of self.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I love this sort of like thinking about maturity, immaturity, right? Like this planet that signifies age in this sign that is like the youngest kind of archetypal, like it's the baby, it's the spark, it's the new beginning. And so it's like, well, you're like a little too big for your britches, kiddo. Like we gotta raise you up a little bit here.
Mhm. Exactly, exactly. And I would say with clients, I've been telling them like growing pains are great over the summer. Like I think that there's an element where we can lean in bravely, and that's an Aries phrase is like bravely leaning into the places where we're like, oh, I'm immature, I'm acting immaturely there. Acting
Hmm.
also like thinking about a Mars ruled sign, like what is my behavior? And is my behavior engendering regulation with myself and others, Cancer? Like, do I love my body? Do I love myself? I know these are big questions for folks, but that's actually what this signature to me looks like.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and thinking like on a personal level, looking at the house where, like on the Aries cusp, or the house cusp that it's on Aries, like what's going on there? I mean, it's very evident to me.
Same.
Like in my seventh house, like I I was in a partnership last year that I thought I was going to be in forever, and now I'm not. And I'm sort of like, I'm rethinking everything. And I'm like, how do I want to be in partnership going forward as an almost 40-year-old? How do I want to like um, um, manage my time, energy, resources in terms of how much I give to other people? and and how does that square up for me? 10th house stuff with my career, my vocation, like how I'm showing up in the world, it certainly has an impact. Like, and so I think that for folks, you can like really break it down and just be like, where do I need to get my shit together? Or where do I just like have no fucking clue in the Aries part of my chart, and in what ways? And, how is that going to impact these like big dreams that I have for the Cancer part of my life?
Yes, beautifully said. And I want to also mirror that it you like what you just shared. It's like the relational piece because you're a Libra rising. This is all happening in your seventh house of one-on-one partnerships. You experienced that Neptune in Pisces before, which was like, this is dream love. This is the perfect love. Like everything's perfect. I'm completely missing the red flags. Like Pisces, Pisces, Pisces. Neptune moving into Aries first, by the way, which was like March 30th. Um, Came in and dissolved. Like, I mean, it might have happened before that, but like Neptune's like, oof, yeah, that was the Pisces trip. And here's the reality check, the wake up call. And I want to
Hmm.
just name for folks that they can be having simultaneous disillusions, Neptune, and rebuilding structure, Saturn, at the same time right now, which I know is so dizzying. Like, I just have compassion for everybody because it's so dizzying to be break
Yeah.
to like have things dissolve while things are being built up at the same time with these two planets, dominant spot.
Yeah. Such an exercise in surrender. What's happening in Aries right now? Because Marvel, I'm like, I don't know. I don't even know. And I thought I knew and I don't know. And it's gonna be that way for a while.
I'll give a great example of it happening in my 10th house because it's like
Please.
the most visible, right? So I'm literally having Saturn and Neptune in the most visible part of my chart. To tie back to this Jupiter cycle, it's when I transitioned, right? I shared like that's when I started to take testosterone. My body started to change in the last Jupiter Cancer cycle. Here I am on the cusp of this new one, and I'm having a bunch of career blow up moments where like things feel very exciting, also terrifying. So I'll name that piece in a good way. Like I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. But here's the trip. A lot of the career stuff that's been coming my way are people who are like projects and people coming into my sphere in a career sense that are like, oh, you're so exciting. They don't know that I'm trans. And so I've had this very crazy full circle, Jupiter, full circle experience where I'm like, oh my God, I wanted so badly to do this. And now, no, it's not regret around transition. It's, oh my God, I'm somehow hiding again. So it's like such a trip, right? Like the first time I was like, oh, I'm not being myself because I can't see my masculinity. And now I've integrated my masculinity and all this anti-LGBT stuff, all this anti-trans stuff. I'm like, when do I disclose? Do I disclose? Will I lose a job if I disclose? That's all happening. And that's 10th house. And that's
Oh
Neptune.
my
Like,
gosh.
dude, like what makes a man? What is a man? Like if I find out that if people find out that I'm trans that I'm working with, do I then become not a man and lose the job? So it's like such an I know this is the 10th house. This is like, oh, I have to walk a very tight rope right now where I'm like, for the first time in my entire life transitioning, it's been 12, 13 years now. I was like, wow, I've never wished I was cis. I've never wished I was cis until Saturn and Neptune moved into Aries. And I was like, not that I wish I was cis because I have any internalized transphobia, although, I think we all navigate that to some degree, but more so because literally of career stuff. Like, literally just like, can I get where I want to go and how do I get there? And I'm being vulnerable here because I'm like, it's such a I don't know scary Aries process of like, how do I show
Yeah.
up? 10th house.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, thank you for sharing that. I mean, I'm like really hearing that you have this 10th house, like Aries need to like be victorious and like have these like big wins in your career and that's happening. It's like very exciting and it's moving. And then you also have this need to just like be you and to nurture yourself and your own identity and that when we get these squares, I mean, it's like we use this linguistically all the time, like, oh, they're like squaring off with one another, right? Like it really is it's a rub, at least, if not just an outright like throwdown
Yep.
between these two needs that like you shouldn't have to compete. Those needs shouldn't have to compete. Like you should be able to be both. But yeah, you are experiencing this tension right now.
And I will say that I think maybe because of the Pisces piece for me, like my Pisces placements always have some kind of I have like a cosmic awareness. It's just a very not and like look, I'm not a sage or a guru, but like I just have I often have helicopter. I also have like an Aquarius stellium, so I have like helicopter vision a lot of the time with my life. Sometimes in a good way, sometimes in like a not a very integrated way. But the helicopter vision is like these things are ultimately going to be married in terms of my true like my full identity and my career. Like I have no questions, but I am being put in these interesting situations like right now where I'm like, oh, I'm negotiating and navigating the first house Cancer and the 10th house Aries in a way that I
Yeah.
think throwdown, rub down, conflict, all the words you were using. I'm like, yeah. So for folks listening, like, where is the Cancer and the Aries parts of your chart? Because they're in deep, tense dialogue right
That's incredible. Yeah, and just like in the seventh house way, I'm like, I don't even know. You're in the 10th house way, like, I don't even know. Like, what do I do about this? But what I do know is that Cancerian is like that stability, the like deep tree with the deep roots, or like the mother elephant that like never forgets like where the babies are of just like no, I know what I need to take care of and I know what needs nurturing and I know what's true. And how do I like hold that and make sure that that stays safe and good while I'm navigating this area of my life that I don't fucking know?
I'm sensitive to time, but I'm like enjoying this so
Yes.
much. But I want to talk about the Sagittarius full moon that's coming up. We'll give like maybe
Yes.
give the date for that and just talk about how this is such a the Sagittarius full moon that's coming up. I believe June is it June 14th or 15th?
11th.
Oh,
The
11th. Oh,
11th.
yeah, I'm like, oh, I wish it was farther. Nope, it's happening very soon. Okay,
It's so
so
soon.
it's so soon. And actually, this podcast will come out probably after. Well, we'll see. Maybe I can get
We'll
it.
be in it.
We'll be in it. We'll be in it when this podcast comes out. But the Sagittarius full moon is to me such a flashlight illumination of what this everything we've been talking about, especially the square from
Yeah.
Saturn and Neptune to Aries, is illuminating for each and every one of us. Again, you said beautifully at the top, like the moon helps us integrate emotionally what's actually happening. So I'd love
Yeah.
to hear your thoughts on the Sag full moon, and then we can maybe wrap it up with some advice for Jupiter and Cancer transit for everybody listening.
Yeah. I love the interplay between Cancer and Sagittarius. That like that in conjunction is so special. I've been dating a double Sagittarius and we're so different.
My
But
partner
it's like,
my partner is a Sad rising Sagittarian, and yeah. Oh.
oh,
So we've been together for
we could
6
talk.
years. I'm
Oh
like,
my
we're
God.
so different. It drives me crazy, and also I love her to pieces. I'm like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
tell me
it's,
more. I'm like so curious what your thoughts are about this aspect. It's crazy.
yeah, I mean, I just think like Sag wants to go. It like wants to explore. It wants to go like check out the horizon. Like what's on the other side of the horizon? I must know. And Cancer's like, well, I'll be here with a home cooked meal when you come back because I don't need that. I don't really need that. And so, having like, it's an interesting, I mean, in the tradition, we would say it's not a true mutual reception because the signs like can't see each other. Like they don't make a perfect aspect to one another. But that there is this really beautiful give and take with like the moon in Sag and Jupiter in Cancer of this like, yeah, like they're in each other's happy places and it's just fun. It's secure, but it's fun. And
Mhm.
that's to me like ideal.
Sweet spot. I feel my Cancer placements are like, yes, secure but fun. Secure but fun. I would say to speak to like the fact I love that we're both in relationship in this way, like we're living it out. I have also most of my midpoints are in Sagittarius, so I have a lot of karma with Sagittarius in general. I will speak to the fact that this full moon is there's an optimism amidst maybe trouble at the beginning is what I would say. Like there is an optimism of wow, there's a new horizon, and I would speak directly to folks listening. If there's any aspects of your life where you're like this is never going to change, or I'm so depressed in this area. This is to me like Gemini and Pisces squares. It's like I'm depressed in this area. This is never going to change. There's stagnation. There's no movement. This full moon to me in Sagittarius is like, oh, there's movement. Things are
Hmm.
moving to me, to me is like light at the end of the tunnel a little bit. Like, oh, there's actually light, and there's a tunnel, and there's an expanse on the other side.
Yes. Yes. And
That
literally, I am literally moving the day before this full moon.
I'm gonna be. I'm also like traveling. I'm traveling a bunch. Like I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, traveling,
Yeah.
moving.
Hmm. I will also say there is an applying Mars Uranus square in this chart. Um, and I think that square goes exact at 28 Leo Taurus, which just a little throwback. I love like trigger points. 28 Leo is where Venus stationed retrograde in 2023. So there may be an interesting callback to that Venus retrograde under this full moon. It's just sort of like it's a little in the weeds, but I noticed that and thought it was worth mentioning.
Wow. I will just say that on that Venus station, I was in Greece with a group of people having a kiki, like having a beautiful vacation with my partner, who's a Sag who loves to travel to Europe all the time. And interestingly, I'm talking to a Greek talent agent right now, and I'm like, oh, I wonder if he's gonna get back. Like, I wonder what's gonna happen with him. Like, you know what I mean? Just the Leo of it too, the acting part of it. Like, that's all. Oh, thank you for saying that. That just like clicked for me. I will say the it does give me a little pause. I was listening to Chris Brennan, not yeah, Chris Brennan talk about it on the astrology podcast for June with Lisa Scheim. They both were like Uranus, like Mars Uranus. Woo. So the moon, I think that things can get dislodged that can be really powerful from a healing perspective, right? And I would say it's a time where like maybe people are gonna want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, and maybe we should just like let Jupiter and Cancer marinate for a minute. I don't know. Like there's an explosive quality to Mars Uranus. I mean, we know that signature and how it's played out for the current president, but like, well, yeah, we'll see what happens. Yeah, yeah. You're like
No comment.
no comment. So there's and maybe one way to bring it to just the individual level is like something's getting illuminated that is a new potentiality, new positive. Like the Sag piece is like there is a new adventure to be had. Here it
Mhm.
is. The Mars Uranus of it all might be like this piece has to break so that you can go on that journey,
Yeah.
or it to maybe not be so crude. Like this piece has to really be resolved so that we can move forward, and it might feel a little breaky.
Yeah. I mean, this is one of these like the kind of final squares between Uranus or between Taurus and Leo until, or sorry.
I know what
This
you
is
mean.
one of the final squares that we get before the ingress
Yep.
to Gemini, and so it is there. To me, it sort of has a we're kind of wrapping up some of this weird square like story that we has been ongoing since Uranus entered Taurus in 2018.
And especially, I think just to name that ending cycle, it likely has to do, not for everybody, but like, again, these are Taurus, I think of finances, resources, self-esteem, how you value yourself. Leo is a lot about being seen, being lauded for your creative
Expression,
expression. Yeah.
yeah,
So there can be
yeah,
tension between all of that, which I'm certainly seeing in my life.
yeah.
My partner is also a Sagittarian and a Taurus stellium, so I'm
Oh,
like, I'm so, and like late Taurus, so I'm like so excited for Uranus to get off her Sun, her Chiron, her Mercury, her Mars.
I'm sure. I'm sure. Oh my gosh, yeah, that's heavy.
So to wrap up here, I would love to just, if you have any thoughts about how Jupiter and Cancer can work for people, like how they can work with it, some advice maybe, any like imparting wisdom to have with this transit.
With Jupiter and Cancer, yeah. I think focus on building capacity. I think that that's such a huge like way to like work with this. And that might be simply resting. Like,
Water sign. Yeah.
yeah. But I think that especially with Saturn and Aries, and if we're looking at sort of systemic collapse happening with that, whether that's on a personal level, interpersonal, collective level, we have to build capacity to care for one another and to care for ourselves, because ultimately, like, systemic collapse means that people are going to have needs that are unmet, and we're going to have to shift the way that we strategize to meet those needs. So we got
Wow.
this.
Mutual aid. Beautifully said on your part. I'm like, wow, that I could just we could just end the podcast there because I'm like that piece of if my cup is full or even half full and I'm just putting water in my own cup, I'll be able to take care of other people as well. And I think that beautiful movement from Gemini to Cancer here is, oh, okay, I understand that everyone's going to have different perspectives. Everyone's going to have different perspectives over the same situation. How can we love, I think of a little bit of Christ consciousness, like how can we love people regardless of their opinions or thoughts or beliefs about something? And how do
Mhm.
we also be stewards of, to me, especially as a Cancer rising, you've got Cancer sun, like how can we be stewards of emotional capacity to love people unconditionally? Before you and I even hopped on the podcast, I was ruminating and thinking about how I also have deep love for Trump supporters. Like I have deep love. I'm like it's a deep love for me and it's a deep love and desire to understand. And I think that
Mhm.
that's actually what we need moving forward rather than the like you're wrong, I don't want anything to do with you, like more so the way that a mother or a guardian loves their children even if the child is doing something that is like out of the, you know, reality tunnel of the mother. Like I think there's something,
Yes.
right? That's something that we have to
Well,
cultivate. Yeah.
because good parents can see the need behind the behavior. And that's, I think, what we need to do to be good neighbors. And if we really, yeah, we can completely disagree and be even deeply shocked, offended, and horrified by the way that people are behaving. But there is something that really changes the game when you can search for the human need underneath the behavior. There always is one, and try to meet someone in that place.
It makes me think of the nonviolent communication line where it's like every act of violence is the unfortunate result of an unmet need.
Yep. Yep.
So we've got Cancer. I mean, I think that's Jupiter and Cancer, I think will help us illuminate that. I think maybe collectively. That's what I'm really hoping for. We do have to get, I think Jupiter has to get to maybe 5 or 6 degrees. There's a little bit of transition in 2025. I think 2026 Jupiter and Cancer is going to really be rolling and rock. Well, even actually by the fall, I think
Hmm.
Jupiter and Cancer is going to have a pretty wide berth from Saturn Neptune, at least Saturn, because Saturn's retrograding back into Pisces. So I think that there will be a lot of potential. The healing, I think, is going to feel even more supercharged the farther into 2025 that we get.
Yes. Yes. Wow. Well, to that end, can I plug a couple things that I'm
Please, I
working
want to hear
on?
what the Cancer's doing. Yes, yes, yes.
So in Tucson, at Cosme Astrology, which is like a brick and mortar astrology place, and also there's a podcast that Lisa Warman she owns and operates Cosme. We are hosting a retreat on July 11th, 12th, 13th that I'll be facilitating on. It's called Signs of Empathy, and so it is about everything that we just ended talking about empathy and astrology and how do we cultivate empathy for ourselves and then also for others through astrology. So I'm so excited to be doing that. And if you can't make it to Tucson to do the full retreat on June 28th, I'm going to give a talk, which is actually the talk that I gave at LA Astrofest on this topic. So it'll be like a 90-minute webinar. And yeah, so please come to either or both of those if you're listening.
Amazing. The links are in the show notes. So all of that, and then including how to contact Lindsey. Are you doing one-on-one consultations right now with folks? Or
Yes,
okay, great.
yes, I do. I do. I have limited availability, but I'm so happy to see people.
Same. I think you and I might be very popular as Jupiter enters Cancer.
I hope so.
So I'm in the same boat where I'm like, oh, I can't see people as much as I'd like to. So yes. Anyway, grab the Cancers while you can. Jupiter's it's gonna be like making it big. Thank you, Lindsey, so much. This was lovely. This was so
Thanks, Marvel. It was my pleasure. So happy to talk with you. And yeah, and I'm really excited about this transit, and I hope that it is a huge blessing for us all.
all right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to Lindsey and I discussing Jupiter and Cancer. And I will talk to you next week, as always, on the